Tilda. Indeed, history has this wonderful, miraculous, seemingly inescapable ability to repeat itself. So with a bit of a mind flip, we're into a time slip, and everything will be the same. So I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to join me with a jump to the left and a step to the right, as we do hashtag Dictionarygate again. And if you don't know what that is, here is a horrendous self-promoting shill for my previous video on the subject. Basically, some guy thumbed through a dictionary one day, realized that the example sentence for the word rabid was a rabid feminist. He wrote to the dictionary demanding that they change the example sentence, and the collective internet laughed at him. I authored a video demonstrating the hilarious hypocrisy within his position by only paying attention to examples that he claimed were negatively stereotyping of women. He tried to get my video censored by orchestrating a mass flagging campaign. YouTube upheld a privacy complaint because I featured his publicly available Twitter profile within the video by showing all of the tweets that he authored about the subject. My video got pulled, and so it was I authored a second one, which encapsulated all of the lols that happened afterwards when this dude went on a fucking blocking rampage on Twitter, spending a brief amount of time impersonating the Twitter support because he didn't think that his special snowflake sensibilities were being catered to enough. And thus the event of hashtag Dictionarygate came to an end. Or so we thought. Enter hashtag Redefine Women. The exact same campaign with the exact same complaint, except this time it's two Australian feminist women who are doing the complaining. So we now get to point and laugh at the stupidity that results from the modern internet call-out culture, where people are so desperate to get their 15 minutes of virtue signaling fame that they will stir up complete and utter non-traversies just to get attention, and then attempt to justify this with some sort of pseudo-academic veneer that doesn't stand up under even the lightest scrutiny. Let's get on into this one, shall we? Two Australian advertising executives, Georgia Patch and Keir Nicholas, have noticed that Google's definition for words like promiscuous and housework have something in common, and they aren't afraid to call the tech company out on it. We can't just make points anymore, or have disagreements, or even just make observations. Everything these days has to be a fucking call-out, doesn't it? Because everyone is a righteous, moral crusader against the evils of the world, or something. Certain words, the duo noticed, always use the term she in the definition example, which they believe insinuates sexist connotations, so they created the hashtag Redefine Women on Instagram to push back. Now I'd like to take a moment to just look at the language that they've used there. Certain words always use the term she. In reality, what they mean is certain words use she, and there is only one example. We noticed that the sentence examples Google search was aggregating to bring definitions to life were objectively sexist, Patch and Nichols told Mick.com. Some of them sounded like they were straight out of the 1950s. We decided to tackle this problem head on. So remember, these examples are objectively sexist. There's no interpretation here, no wiggle room, nothing subjective. They are objectively sexist. Remember that. So let's look at one of their examples which instantly disproves their own assertion. Housework, for which the example is, she still does all the housework. Now remember, that sentence is objectively sexist. Even though it is stating she still does all the housework, which could possibly be an allusion to a complaint that, because it is, after all, the current year, that she should not be doing all of the housework, which would actually make it a feminist message. or at least a message implying that there should be greater parity in the level of housework undertaken by all of the members of said household. But nope, it is clearly insinuating that a woman's place is the home, objectively. Let's look at one of their other examples. Promiscuous, the example sentence for which, she's a wild, promiscuous, good time girl. Objectively sexist. Never mind the fact that example sentences aren't implying or insinuating anything, they are simply an example of how the word could be used in common parlance. But the idea that someone could potentially say that a woman is promiscuous is clearly an insinuation of sexism. Because clearly, there is never any reason why you would ever call a woman promiscuous. And the final example that they feature in this article, nagging. The adjective, a nagging wife. Well, clearly women never nag their male partners, or anyone else for that matter, so this is just a negative stereotype, born out of no basis in reality. So I think I've worked out what their criteria are to call these example sentences objectively sexist, and it's basically anything that potentially implies that a woman could be in any way less than perfect. Never mind the fact that the example sentences in the dictionary are supposed to simply give you a better understanding of how the words would be used in common parlance. And a lot of the speech that we use is talking to or about people, and interpersonal language is kind of important, what with humans being a social species. So I don't think either of these women actually understand the purpose of the example sentences. But you know what? I'm going to look at some other examples from the very same dictionary that they are using and see if we can use their same criteria to come to any other conclusions regarding any other ism. So we've got the word attack here, the example sentence from the verb, he attacked the government's defense policy. And in the noun, we've got he was killed in an attack on a checkpoint and he launched a stinging attack on the Prime Minister. Wow, some examples really do take a gendered word and use it for all of the examples, don't they? I mean, I've provided one of those, you failed to do that along with your assertion, but I guess I've done that bit of legwork for you. Too bad it goes against your position. But what is rather interesting about this is that two of these examples with men have men attacking other people. Well, that's a very negative stereotype of men, isn't it? As violent and aggressive. And even the other one where the man is the victim, well, he was killed in an attack on a checkpoint, implying that that man was possibly part of the military or the armed service or some sort of law enforcement agency. Again, another stereotype of men. Well, I wonder if there's any other examples where men are used in a way that portrays them as being aggressive, because I would imagine that if we could find just a couple more, we could start saying that the dictionary is being sexist against men, because it's displaying them with negative attributes, since that is the criteria for what makes these definitions and examples sexist. Brute, for which the definition is a savagely violent man or animal, and the example is, he was a cold-blooded brute. So not only is the example sexist here because it's saying that a man is a cold-blooded brute, which is a negative stereotype of men, but even the definition states that only a man can be a brute. A woman can never, in any way, exhibit violent or animalistic behavior. Wow, dictionary. Just wow. That anti-male sexism. I wonder if there's any more objectively sexist definitions that I can dig out of this. Stab. He stabbed her in the stomach. Well, once again, we're not only finding that anti-male sexism portraying men as being violent killing machines, but we've also got the stereotype of male perpetrator, female victim. And even in the second example at the bottom, he stabbed him in the stomach. So we've got two examples, and in both of them, the male is the perpetrator. Well, you know what? I've got 3 examples on my side to your 3 examples over there. I think we can quite safely say that the dictionary is objectively sexist against men. But let's just see if we can go a little bit further, shall we? I feel like there's some more examples in there that I can use for this. Strike. He raised his hand as if to strike me. God damn it, dictionary, constantly playing into that negative stereotype, that sexist stereotype that men are just violent. But why stop there when we can start talking about his evil deeds? Because evil deeds, after all, are just the providence of men. Women never perpetuate any sort of evil deed. Well, I don't know about any of you, but I'm certainly convinced that we need to #redefine men, just to see if we can combat some of this blatant sexism in the Google dictionary. But you know what? Why stop there? Let's see if we can go one further. In fact, let's see if we can go intersectional with our analysis. Decrepit. Of a person to mean elderly and infirm. The example, a rather decrepit old man. Hot damn, I think we've just hit the intersection of sexual discrimination and ageism. Only men who are old can be decrepit. Because of course women, when they get older, never suffer from any sort of infirmity or reduced health. Since we've just hit that intersection, let's see if we can go down the ageism route a little bit more, shall we? Menacing. Our officers encountered menacing looks from teenagers. Wow, that ageist discrimination, negatively stereotyping teenagers as giving people menacing looks. Well, I don't know about any of you out there, but I really think we need another couple of hashtags. #redefine old people and #redefine teenagers. Because goddamn it, this dictionary is just a hotbed of bigotry, absolutely loaded with negative stereotypes of everyone. It can't just be that these are example sentences that help people better understand how these words could be used in a sentence. No, this dictionary is outright informing people's worldviews. And this is clearly the root cause of all of the negative behaviors in our society. Because as we all know, people are very well known for just sitting down and reading the dictionary cover to cover in order to help them inform their worldview and how they are supposed to behave and interact with others in society. I think it might be time for us to have ourselves a good old-fashioned book burning. Okay, time to turn off the horrendous sarcasm. We went through this issue months ago. It was ridiculous then, it's ridiculous now. Since the criteria that you're playing by is anything that could possibly be negative, then any sort of negative word that has an example that uses a gendered pronoun could be problematic, as I'm sure you would say. And as I've demonstrated here and previously, first of all, this is not an issue. And second of all, if you really want it to be an issue by going this hypersensitive about things, then you must accept that it is not a gendered one. Oh, but of course it is, because #RedefineWomen joins a number of hashtags in recent years aimed at bringing attention to feminist causes on social media, from #EverydaySexism to #RapeCultureIsWhen to viral fave #FreeTheNipple. Patch and Nichols said they're focusing on the seemingly trivial issue of Google's dictionary definitions because, quote, the bigger conversations happening around feminism would be more impactful if the fundamentals were addressed, unquote. And of course, nothing is more fundamental than words. Ultimately, we want to start a conversation about language and contemporize the way women are defined, they said. We started with overlooked subtleties that are all too harrowing in isolation. Yes, an example sentence is harrowing. And god damn it, that fucking sentence. We want to start a conversation. Everything, no matter how absurd, is always starting a conversation. Everything is fine as long as it starts a conversation. You want to contemporize the way women are defined, and you want to do that by removing any sort of negative connotation towards women, because women can never do anything bad or have anything bad associated with them, because after all, females are sugar, spice, and everything nice, right? And to dare to even imply anything to the contrary is harrowing. You want to contemporize the discourse about women. Frankly, I don't think you have any business talking about women in society, because that would imply that you are able to talk about things as if you are an adult. Women, being adults, are able to handle words on a page that are not a personal commentary about them or a commentary about their gender, but just an example of how a word would be placed within a sentence. I would say that your inability to handle this would make you a child, but even children can handle this. So where does that leave you?